The courtroom was dead silent. Cameras weren't allowed, but if they were, the footage would have gone viral in minutes. A former personal assistant, known only as Mia, took the stand. Her voice cracked, her hands trembled. And what she said next? It could bring down one of the most powerful and untouchable figures in the music world. To the outside world, his life looked perfect. Private jets, platinum records, sold-out tours. But according to this witness, that luxury came at a horrifying cost, one paid in silence, manipulation, and fear. For years, she says she was trapped behind the scenes, forced to smile in public while enduring what she now calls psychological warfare.
When I chose to leave, I grabbed what I could and I got out. Ventura testified during the second week of the trial. Sean followed me into the hallway before the elevators and grabbed me up, threw me on the ground, kicked me, tried to drag me back to the room.
And she's not alone. She's just the latest name in a growing list of women coming forward, each claiming the same thing, that the man who built an empire did so by tearing others down in private. But Mia's testimony is different. It's detailed, it's personal, and it's already sent shockwaves through the courtroom and across social media. She claims she wasn't just a witness, she was a victim, and what she endured might be far worse than anyone expected. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. This is a federal case involving sex trafficking, racketeering, and an alleged criminal network designed to silence victims and protect the man at the center of it all. And if the jury believes her, it could be the beginning of the end for one of music's most powerful moguls. Her name isn't Mia. That's just the name she's using now, because revealing her real identity in this case could put her safety at risk. But despite the fake name, what she shared in court was very real. Mia wasn't just a background figure, she was on the inside. As a personal assistant, she traveled with him, managed his day-to-day, and saw what no one else could. To the public, it looked like a dream job, VIP access to everything, working with a global superstar, being in the rooms where major decisions were made. But behind closed doors, Mia says it was more like a nightmare. She told jurors that her time working under him wasn't about music or opportunity. It was about fear. According to Mia, what started as a professional role quickly turned into something much darker. Allegations of psychological control, verbal abuse, and eventually physical and sexual mistreatment. She didn't hold back. She described being forced to post glowing updates on social media about her boss, all while enduring constant harassment behind the scenes. Her posts showed luxury, glamour, and loyalty, but she says they were all lies, crafted to protect his image and hide the truth about how he really treated those closest to him. From the outside, she looked like just another member of the entourage. But now, inside a federal courtroom, she's become a key witness in a case that could expose one of the darkest chapters in the entertainment industry. And the most disturbing part? She claims she wasn't the only one. But before the full truth could unfold, the defense made their move. And what they did next shocked everyone in the room. From the moment Mia took the stand, the courtroom felt charged. Her testimony wasn't rushed. It was raw, vulnerable, and painfully specific. She wasn't speaking in headlines or sound bites. She was speaking as someone who had lived through it. Over 3 intense days, she described a world completely hidden from the public, a world where wealth, fame, and status created a kind of shield, one that, she says, allowed her boss to control people without consequences. She talked about late-night confrontations, violent outbursts, and deeply disturbing moments she said she kept buried for years. But what made her words even more powerful was how hard they were to say. At one point, she told the jury, "It's the worst thing I've ever had to talk about in my life." The emotional weight was visible, but that didn't stop the defense from going on the offensive. Combs' legal team was relentless. They combed through years of messages, Instagram posts, and personal texts between Mia and her former boss. In many of them, she seemed supportive, even affectionate. There were emojis, words like "I love you," and messages congratulating him on career milestones. To the defense, this was proof that her story didn't add up, that someone who truly suffered wouldn't be sending loving messages years after the fact. But Mia didn't flinch. She looked at the jury and said exactly what she felt. "I was brainwashed." She claimed that the version of her that sent those texts wasn't the real her, but someone under constant pressure, still afraid, still conditioned to protect the man she says hurt her. And just as the tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point, the prosecution stepped in with a chilling reminder: what you post online isn't always real. Sometimes it's a highlight reel designed to survive, but the defense wasn't finished, not even close. What came next took the case in an even darker direction. The defense wasn't just trying to raise doubts, they were trying to dismantle Mia's entire story piece by piece. Their strategy? Aggressive, unrelenting cross-examination. And for 3 straight days, that's exactly what they did. Combs' attorney zeroed in on every text, every social media post, every interaction that might suggest Mia still admired or even loved him, years after the abuse allegedly took place. One message read, "I love you with all my heart, and I'm here for you forever." Another simply said, "I miss you." To the jury, it may have seemed confusing. Why would someone say that to a man she's accusing of abuse? The defense pushed that point hard, suggesting Mia fabricated her entire testimony, that the texts revealed her true feelings and everything else was revisionist history. They even questioned her most dramatic claims, like the story of escaping with another woman by paddleboarding out to sea. The attorney asked why there were no photos, no emails, no digital trail. "Isn't it true you just made that up?" the lawyer asked, but Mia didn't back down. "Everything I've said in this courtroom is true," she fired back, her voice shaking but steady. She explained that for years, she lived in survival mode, trapped between fear and loyalty, silence and self-protection. She said she knew that posting anything negative could ruin her career, her safety, and possibly her life. Still, the defense's tactics began to stir unease. Even the prosecution had to step in, not to defend the facts, but to protect the witness. They argued the grilling had crossed the line into harassment, that the humiliating nature of the questions could stop other victims from ever coming forward. "Eyes are on this trial," the lead prosecutor said. "If this witness isn't protected, others will stay silent." The judge didn't see any violations, but issued a clear warning to the defense. "Watch your tone." It was a brutal exchange. And while the courtroom arguments were heating up, something even more chilling was brewing outside, because Mia wasn't the only one with a story to tell. Mia's story wasn't isolated, and that's what made it even more devastating. As she stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just about one assistant's allegations anymore. It was about a pattern, one that, prosecutors claimed, stretched back years, maybe even decades. Behind the glitz and platinum records, a growing number of voices began to echo Mia's. Former employees, ex-partners, and industry insiders, all whispering similar themes: control, intimidation, manipulation. Some stories hadn't been shared publicly before. Others had been buried under NDAs, fear, or industry pressure. But now, with the trial underway, those stories were beginning to surface. Prosecutors described Combs' empire as more than just a business. They painted it as a machine built to protect one thing: his image. They claimed he didn't just surround himself with lawyers and publicists, but with enablers. People who knew, looked the other way, or in some cases, helped cover it up. One anonymous former employee allegedly said, "Everyone knew there were rules you didn't break around him. You didn't question him. You didn't say no. You just did what you were told." Another woman, whose name has not yet been released in court records, reportedly described a similar experience of coercion and psychological abuse, eerily close to what Mia detailed on the stand. And while defense attorneys were quick to dismiss these accounts as opportunistic or exaggerated, public opinion was already shifting. Online forums exploded. TikTok sleuths dug up old interviews. Fans began revisiting past controversies with a different lens, asking themselves, was this hiding in plain sight all along? But the court wasn't dealing in gossip. It was dealing in evidence, and prosecutors said they had more, much more, yet to reveal. The next phase of the trial would uncover internal emails, financial records, and chilling details about what some called the inner circle, a group of people who may have helped keep the alleged abuse hidden in exchange for silence, protection, or favor. And while Combs maintained his innocence, the question looming over everyone was no longer, did he do it? But rather, how much was hidden, and for how long? As the trial moved toward its conclusion, the courtroom wasn't the only place where judgment was unfolding. In the public eye, a different kind of verdict was already being rendered, one shaped not by legal arguments, but by stories, emotions, and years of built-up questions. Inside court, the defense made its final push. They attacked timelines, questioned motives, and pointed out gaps in documentation. They reminded the jury that emotion doesn't equal evidence, and that the stakes were high. Life behind bars, a legacy dismantled, a global empire gone. But outside, the tide had turned. The man who once defined an era, who danced in shiny suits and built an industry around his name, was now a symbol of something darker. A cautionary tale, a reminder that fame, money, and influence don't shield someone forever. The music industry began to quietly distance itself. Event invites stopped coming. Collabs were shelved. Artists who once called him a mentor no longer answered questions about him. Former allies deleted old photos. Even radio stations reduced spins of his classic hits. The brand Diddy had been built on celebration, bravado, and control. Now it was associated with something else entirely. Allegations of manipulation, trauma, and silence. But for the alleged victims, those who testified, and those who stayed behind the scenes, this wasn't just about reputation. It was about reclaiming their voice. Mia's testimony, painful and raw, cracked open a door others had been afraid to touch, and through that door, a flood of long-buried truths began to pour. The verdict in the courtroom hasn't arrived yet, but in the culture, a shift has already happened. And whether Combs walks free or faces a lifetime sentence, the era where stories like this were ignored, dismissed, or buried may finally be over. Because now people are watching, people are listening, and no amount of power can turn back the clock on that.